Good.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Christy Romer. I am from New Horizons of Syracuse and Rochester. I am a business professional instructor. I've been doing SharePoint training for over 3 years now. And what I want to talk to you guys about today is the common story that I keep hearing from organizations one after another. And the story goes something like this. First of all, let's find out how many of you have to fill out a time off request. If you're going to go on vacation, you have to fill out a time off sheet, give it to whoever so they can sign it, and hopefully you get approved for your vacation. Well, that's what most of us typically have to do, and what I'm finding in our organizations that we're doing is, let's take Kelly here. He has to fill out a time off request for an upcoming vacation. So he goes to grab that time off request form, which is actually a Word document, and he's hunting and he can't find it. So he looks through his My Documents landfill and finds last year's time off request. Good thinking, Kelly. And he opens it up and he tweaks it and he saves as, and then he prints it out. Yeah, he printed it out. So he printed it out because then he needed to take it to his manager's office so that his manager could sign it, physically sign it. So he gets to the office and the manager's not there. So Kelly puts it on the manager's chair, because how could the manager miss it there, right? Puts it on the manager's chair, and Kelly's part of the process is done. So he goes back to his office and he waits, and he waits, and he waits. When does he find out whether or not he has approval for this vacation? And if he does get approved for this vacation, how do the other people in his department know he's out on vacation at that point in time? So this is the dilemma that I'm finding most organizations are running into. Just a simple process, right? Time off request. How can we make this better? So if we were to come in and pull in SharePoint, pull in InfoPath, and pull in SharePoint Designer, we can make this process much better, more seamless, so everybody involved knows what's going on. So that's the exact example that we're going to take a look at today together by pulling in to SharePoint in InfoPath form, taking it from InfoPath, putting it into SharePoint, and then building that workflow on top of it. So that's our game plan. You all received sign-in or sheets when you came in. One of those sheets has just a simple little process on the back, and that's what I want to talk about. First off, the business analyst side of things is we've got to gather requirements for what is needed for this workflow. So the first thing that we're going to need is a vacation request form, and we're going to want it to get submitted. Once it's submitted, we want it to look up who Kelly's department manager is, so that then it can get routed properly to his manager so that it can go through the approval process. Is it approved? That's where the workflow is going to come in and make the decision of, all right, nope, it wasn't approved, sorry, it's going to go back to Kelly and tell him, no go, can't have vacation for that point in time. Or, yes, it's approved. All right, what we want to have happen is we want his vacation time to get copied to a calendar so that his whole department knows he was approved and is on vacation for that day, that time, that half a day, whatever the case may be. In the end, it all gets back to him telling him, yep, you're good, and then our process stops. So we're going to let SharePoint take over this whole entire process. So that's what I'm going to demo up here. If you will, hold questions till the end, and then I'll have time at the end to go through things one-on-one if anybody has anything. But basically, I'm going to switch gears here and go to my SharePoint world, where I just want to show you the parts and pieces that are already in place to build the workflow. So first off, I have a department managers list where we have a few departments and we have those usernames that are the managers. So this is the list that the workflow is going to look to figure out who's manager. I have a vacation request form which is actually an info path form library, that we have a request form to fill out when we want our vacation and when we are going to start, when we're going to end, along with the times, as well as what department we work in. And then I have a vacation calendar that our workflow is going to take, if it's approved, and put it on this calendar for the whole department to know that Kelly's on vacation. So there's 3 pieces to this that we already have in place. Now what we have to do is actually go to Designer and build the workflow. So I'm going to come into SharePoint Designer 2010 and I'm going to switch to my workflow objects. And I'm going to come up and do a list workflow, and I'm going to build that workflow on our vacation request form library. I'm going to give it a name. And of course I would do a description and all of that. I would do my due diligence and put all the parts and pieces in place. I'm going to OK, and that's going to push me right into building this workflow. Before I go any further, and this is something I teach in our workflow workshop, I don't just start, I go change my workflow settings. Because I can't tell you how many times I've gone in, built the workflow, published the workflow, and then sat there for the workflow to run. Inside of my workflow settings, the default is that the workflow manually gets started. So if I had published this before coming in here and changing it, I would still be waiting for the workflow to get kicked off. So we have 3 events that we can kick off a workflow. We can manually start it by hitting a start button or a button on the ribbon. We can start a workflow when an item is automatically created and put in the library. And we also can start a workflow if something has been changed, or we can do a combination of all 3. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and I'm going to say, okay, I want this to start when an item is automatically created, but I also want it to start if something gets changed within that form. So kick it off again. One of the things that SharePoint Designer 2010 gives us the ability to do that 2007 didn't is we can point every workflow to its own task list. So I'm going to tell it to build a task list for this workflow so that it's going to go in and tell the manager you have this task to do. The other thing that I'm going to do, or it did automatically because I didn't have a history, I think it is using an old one. Come in and tell it to use its own workflow history list. So I'm going to tell it to use a new history list. So that it has these 2 lists to work off of independently for this workflow only. So now that I have my start option set, my task list, and my history list ready, I'm going to go ahead and go back to my workflow. So step 1 is going to take and involve us coming in and doing a variable. So the first thing that we need to do is have this workflow look up. I hate typing on a rail. We're going to have it look up the manager, and then we're going to have it go in and start the actual approval. So the first thing I have to do is come in and make a variable for that manager. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to tell the workflow, you got to go and make the manager variable be this specific thing. So we're going to come in and we're going to do an action to set the workflow variable so that it can go look up to our manager's list the correct information. So what workflow variable? The manager one I just created. And then it wants to know, all right, well, what value do you want to come in and pull from? So we're going to have it look up from the department managers. So I'm going to pick that specific list. I want it to come in and I want it to pull in the manager name. And how am I going to do this? Or where's the matching between the list and this workflow? So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to say, okay, when the department name is equal to the current item's department name. So it's going to go in based on the department that the user picks in the form. It's going to figure out who the actual manager is. So now from here, I want it to go in and I want it to do an approval process. So we're going to come up and we're going to add another action. And this time we're going to come in and have it start an approval process. So SharePoint Designer 2010 comes in and has its own approval process now as an action, which far goes beyond what SharePoint Designer 2007 ever thought of having. So this comes in and it simulates more of the SharePoint out-of-box approval workflow that it had in 2007. So now we're able to actually come in and tweak this and make this how we want it versus having to go with the canned out-of-box one that 2007 had. So we come in and we want to start an approval on the current item with who. So we come in and we build the actual task list. So we're building a task for the manager. So we want it to go in and we want it to do a workflow lookup for that variable that we had it find in that first piece, who is the manager. So it's going to come in and it's going to look up the manager. So we're getting the field as source, or the field from the source as our variable manager. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to click OK. And then we're going to come back and do the rest of our tasks. So we have a vacation for approval. And what's nice about this is that we're able to come in here and tweak and make the body of this however we want it to be. So we can come in here and we can say that the actual person, which is the full name from the form, has requested to take vacation from, and then we can come in and we can actually get the start date, and then the end date. So we can write this task however we want, so it's in layman's terms for our end users. You guys have seen maybe some of the actual out-of-box messages that SharePoint comes with. So the alerts, for instance, that you set up or your user set up for yourself, they're canned. We can't tweak them. They are what they are. Through SharePoint Designer, we can make them however we want. We also can come in and we can specify that X has to happen, this has to happen within this many days. So if we say, okay, it has to happen within 3 days. Built into the approval process is a reminder email. So that it will come in, it will remind them, it'll tell them it's overdue. We even can take this a step further, and in the approval process we can say, and if it becomes overdue, email their manager. So we're making true accountability. It's not getting stuck on the chair, which his manager came in and sat on, and never actually saw, and then it landed on the floor and ended up in the garbage. We have it electronically. We're creating accountability within our organization. So once we come in and we have the actual task set up for the manager, one of the things that we want to do is we want to set it up so that Kelly gets an email on whether or not he got approved or rejected for his actual vacation request. So what I have to do is actually come inside of the approval workflow. Inside of here we have all of these different customization places we can go where Microsoft came in and did all the writing of the behind-the-scenes workflow for the approval process. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and I'm going to change the behavior of a single task. And at the bottom of this, I'm going to be able to go in and deal with when the task is completed. So basically it's coming in and it's doing logs to the history list, but what I want is I want it to actually email Kelly of the true outcome. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to say, all right, I want to do an action, get it in the right space, and I want to send an email. So it's going to come in and it's going to send an email to the current user who created the current item. And then I can come in and I can tell them their vacation status. And again, I can come in and I can customize what this email looks like when it comes back to my end user. It's not just some canned one that they don't understand what it is. So we can come in here and we can say your vacation has been, and we can actually go get this information from the actual task. So I can come in and I can look at the current task approval and I can get the outcome. And then it will write it right in the email whether it's been approved or declined. So then we can come in here and we can also provide the comments that may have been typed in by the manager. Again, I've got to go to that task list, that task, to get that information. And somewhere in here I have comments. So now I've just handled the piece where we actually want to let the initiator know of the outcome of the task that was sent to the manager. So now I'm going to back myself back up to our approval workflow and then back into our actual steps. So our first piece of this is completed where we're looking up who the manager is, we're tasking the manager, and then we're also handling whether or not it's been approved, declined, and our initiator is going to know about it. So now the next thing that we're going to come in and do is handle if it does get approved, because remember, we want it to get put to a vacation calendar. So the whole department knows that our person is on vacation. So we're going to come in and we're going to add in another step. Oops, that's not where I wanted to be. So we're going to come in here and if the vacation is approved, then we want to copy the item and to the vacation calendar. So now we're going to come in here and we need to do a condition. If any value equals value, so we're going to say, okay, if the value of the workflow variable is item approved. So Microsoft already has a bunch of variables that it created for its built-in workflow or actions such as the approval. So the is item approved is going to be turned to yes if it's approved, it'll be no if it's not approved. So if the is item approved is yes, then what I want to do is come in and I want it to copy the list item. So I want to take it and I want to go from our, oh, I forgot to do the yes. Better do the yes. I want it to go from this list, which is our current item, to our vacation calendar. So when it's approved, it'll automatically copy over and head into our vacation calendar that we have. I think I missed one thing up here with our variable manager. Let me just double check. Need to make that an email address. So that when it goes in and it looks up who the manager is, user 01, user 02, it turns it into an email address so that it can actually email the person. Our department list, department manager's list, just had names in it. The other piece of this that I highly recommend that you come in and do is log to the history list. So we have action so that we have a place that we can go through and debug, basically. So we can log to a history list whenever we want to. I had one guy in class that said, oh, I just have it email me. So he sends an email every single time that it does something so he knows it was working. We don't need to do that. We can have it go in and log the history list that it's come in and done that. So we have a logged history list. With this log, we can name or come in and type in whatever we want for the actual history. So we can just come in and say the vacation approval started for there. And then down here, we'll come in and we'll say log the history list, and that we've come in and our vacation was copied to calendar. So 2 steps. Our first step is finding out who the manager is and then starting the approval process with them. Our second step is coming in and handling if the manager says, yep, it's approved, then we want it to get and be put on that vacation calendar. I'm going to check my syntax. And that's all the check for errors button does, is it looks at your syntax to make sure that you don't have any syntax errors. It's not actually saying that whether this is going to work or not, all right? That's all it's doing is checking the syntax. And then from here, I'm going to come in and I'm going to publish. So it's publishing and going to be attached to our InfoPath form, which is in our vacation request form library. The one thing that I want to put out there for those of you that haven't used this before and might be wanting to try back at the office is when you want to remove the workflow. So you push the workflow out there, it's on your SharePoint form library or list, whatever the case may be. When you want to remove the workflow, you do it from SharePoint, not from Designer. So I've gotten many calls on, all right, Christy, I published this workflow, now I want to stop it. How do I stop it? We have to go into the workflow settings of the actual list, library, whatever the case may be. This can take a while, depending upon the complexity of your workflow. In production, I've had it take 5-10 minutes even, depends on how many steps, how complex you are. While we're waiting for this guy to go through and publish, is there any questions I can field right now?
Are they leaning towards more automated approaches to make it easier for the end user?
Absolutely.
Okay.
What I'm finding happening is people are rolling out SharePoint as 2007. It's an infant, getting the organization's feet wet with it. Their end users hate it. And then they're coming in and taking and utilizing SharePoint 2010 as their do-over. And they're not calling it SharePoint at that point because their end users already have a bad taste about SharePoint 2007. So we call it company portal or our company intranet, something. Then we implement it for document libraries typically, taking the information off our file servers, cleaning it up, using SharePoint as our new location for all of our documents and document management. And then lists. And we start using our end users into utilizing this product. And then we start making it mission critical by doing this. They have to go to SharePoint because in order to fill out your time request form, you got to go there. So part of the end user adoption is making them have to use it. They have to go there to get their job done. So the last guy talking said training. Yeah, that's part of it for sure. Send them to me. I'll get them trained, all of your end users. But you have to have a purpose for them to go there, or they're not going to. So that's what I'm seeing. That's what I'm seeing. Looks like it published, so let's go ahead and try this guy out. So here we're back in our document library. I'm logged in as Central, okay? I'm going to come in and fill out the form because you better believe I'm taking vacation tomorrow. So we're going to come in here and we're going to fill out who we are, what department we work for, and when we're taking vacation. And then I'm going to go in and I'm going to submit this guy. My submit button's configured to automatically name it. vacation request workflow. It's not in progress. Typically we come in here, it takes a little bit, we see an in progress come into play here. Just check. Behind the scenes in our library settings, we will find that we have workflow settings back here. And this is where you'd be able to see the workflow that you have attached to your library. This is also where you can remove a workflow. All right, so that what I was talking about earlier, you come back here to remove your workflow. For some reason, it didn't kick off. Let's go back and see. It made my task list. So it didn't find who the manager is. It's going to be my guess. One of the things that we can come in and look at also, let me look at this again. So we've got a variable, our manager with our department managers and our manager name, approval on the current item with our variable manager. Alright, well, here's what we're going to do. We're going to remove the workflow. And use my backup one. No matter how many times you test, you know, it never works once you get in front of an audience. So I have it going to a task list. I have it going into a vacation work request workflow history. We'll see it's all set up exactly like I did it, right? So I'm going to come in and publish this guy. This one worked yesterday, all right? While we're waiting for this guy to publish, other questions that I can field. Yeah?
How many of these groups and variables, all the pull down menus, how much of that's popular?
A lot. So, of course, you're going to end up making your own because your process doesn't match the ones inside of the Microsoft ones. The biggest one I've seen that they did a lot of variables for was that approval process. And when you get in there and you dissect that approval process, that approval action, you're going to see there are so many parts and pieces to it, a lot of which you're going to want to go in and turn off. So automatically the approval process emails your users when the workflow started, when the workflow ended. So your users are getting bombarded with email from the workflow that you probably don't want. So what I typically do with the approval workflow is I go behind the scenes into each one of these pieces and dissect what it is that they have set up for it to do. Look for when it is set up to send an email and remove it or tweak it, change it, brand it, however you want it to. I typically go in and remove all the system ones that kick out, except for the task one, of course. But like I said, they have one that kicks off that says the workflow started, that the workflow ended. We don't typically want our users to end up with all of those workflows. This is the workflow that the approved action piece that has the most variables that Microsoft built for. And of course, you can't use the same name when you build your own. So it's up to you. Let's go ahead and see if this guy works. workflow we should have had before. So now I'm being told that we have a workflow that's in progress for this guy. I take a look at it back here. Oh, our heavy load. We always get that message even for in production. I come back and I look at my task list. Didn't pick it yet. See if I have an email. So here's what I was talking about, all of these extra emails that you get from the workflow. Literally from the approval workflow, we end up with 4 emails to start. So here's the one for the item we just did. So the approval started on the one that we just filled out. So Central got told about that. I'm going to come in and I'm going to switch to be our user 01, who is a Central's manager. And I'm going to find that in the task list, I have a task assigned to my user 01 for Central's vacation. So I'm going to come in as user 01, Central's manager, and I'm going to tell them it is well deserved. And I'm going to approve it. So now I'm going to take a look at our vacation calendar. So it approved it. Central will have an email that it approved, and it also went to our department's vacation calendar for our whole entire staff to know that Central's on vacation that day. So if we come back to Kelly, and the initial vacation that he wanted to take, you still want to take one? Yeah? Okay. Then what he would do is he would go to SharePoint, he would go into the InfoPath form library for vacation requests. He'd fill out the form, he'd submit it. It gets routed to his manager. His manager will then be told through a task, through an email, that he has a vacation that needs to be approved. His manager hopefully will approve it. Kelly will then get told that his vacation was approved, and it will go back to the SharePoint calendar, and it will put his vacation on there, so the rest of his department knows he's on vacation that day. That's the difference between implementing our processes through SharePoint, InfoPath, SharePoint Designer, putting all of them together and leveraging those tools the way that they were meant to be leveraged. So now we're creating accountability and communication, which is the 2 items every organization say is a problem. So it's hot in here. Thank you guys so much for your time. I'll certainly take some questions, but I want to leave you with one thought, and that is, how does your work flow? Deeper than you want, right? So I'll take some questions. Yes, Kelly?
Is there a way to create the workflow and find the manager based on the users, just based on what user that's logged in?
Yes. If you have your profiling service set up with your Active Directory, it can go in and it can find who that person's manager is. The thing that I find in organizations, though, is they don't keep those profiles up to date. So then we end up having to do the workaround, which is what I basically showed you. Have a list that points to it so that your end user can maintain that list that it's looking up to. So yeah, absolutely there is.
And then is there any way to put that onto the user's Outlook calendar?
What we can do with SharePoint calendars is we can actually go in and we can connect them, connect to Outlook, and then what they would end up being is a shared calendar. So it'll be no different than a calendar that you may have shared with your coworkers, so you can see them side by side. But taking it and actually putting on their physical calendar. What? It's already on there. So as soon as they submitted it, it's in the actual vacation request form library. So it's in here until the end of time where somebody actually comes in and deletes it. a InfoPath form, or XML data really, which is what InfoPath is. So through views on our library, we could actually make it only show ones that are active or haven't been approved yet. We could have a different view for the approved, a different view for the denied. And of course, through permissions, that would determine who actually can see these things. Other questions? Yeah.
What other business processes has SharePoint been used for?
Tons. You can take any business process that you have within your organization and you can workflow it. Will you have a bunch of workarounds that you have to do to make it work the way that you want it to? Absolutely. We're talking about a 20-year-old SharePoint. All right, 2003 it was an infant, 2007, we're getting into teenage years. Now we're into 2010, so we're dealing with a 20-year-old. So we have a few workarounds that we have to go about to make it happen. The other piece of this that I have implemented within our own organization is a dashboard. So we could actually even have a dashboard on here to see, show us, okay, here's all the people that have submitted for vacation, here's all of the ones that are waiting approval, here's all the ones that have been approved, green check, here's all the ones that have been denied, red X. So we really can take any process and we can make it easier for the end user to know right where that process is. I actually have a gal in our organization that we took a long time, but we got her process that she did manually on SharePoint with a workflow. And she's like, she just said this to me yesterday. She's like, Christy, did I tell you today that I love my dashboard? So it makes a difference. It goes from paper tracking to electronic tracking, which just makes everybody happier. So if there's a specific one that you're thinking of, we can chat after class, but really any process, if it has an approval, that's easy, but really any process that you have, you can do. Other questions for me?
I guess the way one company I worked and simplified vacation. They took away 12 days of sick leave and added 5 more days of time off. It's called the whole thing paid time off.
Okay.
So the senior people kind of got shortchanged.
Right.
The only thing is they also had this thing called return back to work. So if you were out sick, then you'd have to justify why you were sick.
Okay.
So then they would, I'm serious, they would have to contact, if you saw a doctor, then they would have to contact a doctor. So, I mean, you could add that to workflow.
Absolutely.
And don't laugh, it became complicated. It's once they got sick overseas. And so they had to call the doctor overseas. And these people could not comprehend a time zone. So I had to tell them several times over the phone. And it was kind of strange. I had accrued half a year's worth of sick leave because I wouldn't waste my sick leave.
Right.
I felt bad when I got laid off. I didn't use that. I keep taking all that sick leave before. I really feel bad.
Yeah.
I mean, I get work for the, been there almost 20 years.
Absolutely, we can workflow it. It's very difficult for me to stand in line at the checkout counter listening to somebody on their cell phone complaining about something that happened at work, and it's so hard for me not to want to say, I can fix that with a workflow. I go around the office all the time saying it. Yup, a workflow.
Yeah, but it's also management. Management is on the work of the workflow.
It makes a difference. Yeah, there is a little bit of curve because change, right? Whenever there's change, there's resistance. But it's inevitable, and this tool can make change easier in the end. Because now we're taking a lot of manual steps off of people's plates. Kelly doesn't have to go to that manager 5 times and say, so did you approve my vacation? Oh, I got to get to that.
One rival, you should probably track how much vacation a person has accrued.
It can do
One time I
that.
had accrued that actually over 2 years worth. You not going on vacation 2 years. And because of one manager signed my card the wrong way, they almost wiped out all my 6 weeks vacation. So I had to go to corporate and straighten it back out.
So that's just another that's just another SharePoint list where we come in and we have a listing of all of the vacation time that's been accrued, and we can tie that in, business intelligence, with our payroll system, whatever the case may be.
Notify the employee, you need to go on vacation.
Now, so when they submit it, if they don't have any more vacation time left, then we can have it message them and say, sorry, you don't have any more vacation time.
Time to get sick.
Yes.
Say the day before, it's like an emergency situation and the vacation has to be canceled. Is there an easy way to back out of that process? Or?
So I would actually need to come in and in the form build that piece of it into it, right? So build into the form the capability of it going out and sending an email to the world saying, sorry, changed my mind, I'm not taking vacation after all, I'll be in the office, and then have it delete that item off the calendar. So definitely a lot more parts and pieces that we would probably implement into it. So this is InfoPath, Microsoft's form creation tool. That's all this software is for, is building forms. So it goes way beyond what Microsoft Word is capable of doing, because you can have logic in this form, you can have data validation in this form, you can do views with this form product. So what I mean by logic is I could come in and I could have a piece that they have to fill out, and by them coming in and saying yes to that, it actually pops in 5 other things they have to come in and supply. I can also do views. So if I have a 20-item form, I break that down into 5 items per page, and they just have a next step, next step, next step button. So with InfoPath, it goes beyond what SharePoint's custom lists can do, because it's integrated with the ability to do logic, with the ability to do views. The definite thing you'll want to do is learn this product, because everything that SharePoint 2010 builds and SharePoint Designer 2010 builds can all be modified with InfoPath, meaning the initiation form. A custom list on SharePoint, you can actually edit with InfoPath, so you can actually brand your custom list with your logo. So the InfoPath product is even more integrated into SharePoint 2010 and into SharePoint Designer 2010 than we've ever seen it in the past. So it's a definite product to get warm and fuzzy with, because you're going to need it from time to time.
Our end users don't have to.
Well, that's the thing. If you have SharePoint 2010 Server, the paid-for version, then you can implement what's called InfoPath services, and then your users will be able to fill out this form via browser. If you don't have the paid-for version, then every one of your users have to have the clients. It's hopes that the next release, maybe what, 2014, they'll take and make the filler piece of InfoPath free, because what they did with 2010 is they separated the designer and the filler, so they got everybody excited. So I have a designer and I have a filler, and everybody got excited, and the buzz was that, all right, awesome, InfoPath filler is going to be free. No, that's not the case. So the hopes is maybe in the next release, they'll get on board and they'll actually make the filler a free downloadable object like our Adobe is. Filler itself, you can't buy. So you got to buy the whole thing. And InfoPath comes with a professional version of Office. Designer is free. SharePoint Designer 2010 is free. Other questions for me? I feel like I need to go into a cooler. My air conditioning is going to be on all the way to Syracuse. Well, thank you all so much for attending.